Thank you so much, Sable. It is so exciting to be here as a part of Writers CONduit, and especially to participate in believable world building.
If some of this is if you guys have questions or I'm going too fast, please let me know. I tend to talk very quickly.
What made you want to write for kids? This is kind of the icebreaker.
So today what we're going to be covering is we're going to be talking about who can critique and kind of what are the different types of critiquers who are in the world around us.
So, for example, this is Pelagia, homeworld of the Sky Rays.
I've been doing creative writing workshops here where I live for a long time. It's always been this kind of format where we just set a timer, write whatever based on the prompt, and then go around open mic and just kind of read what we wrote.
So we're talking about cover art today. Cover art can attract readers or repel them. As much as we like to think people won't judge a book by its cover, we know it's true.
As far as I can tell, the best definition of what neurodiversity is any form of differentiation in brain function.
We are here to discuss NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month.
This is the traditional versus independent publishing panel.
I'm really into the academic side of mythology as well as the more fun storytelling side.
When you hit somebody, it makes a distinct sound. If you hit them in a certain place, it makes a distinct sound.
Welcome to Writers CONduit, finding your online community.
Hello, and big welcome to everyone who has been able to come to my stream today. I am absolutely delighted to be presenting how to write a visual novel on behalf of Writers CONduit. It's very hot today. Looks like the captions are already a little bit stuck, so we're going to, there we go, that's a bit better. The captions might not work so well because it doesn't seem to like the special method I have used to try and get the captions working. Very sorry about that. I did my best. Do let me know if it's really annoying. You can put your complaints down into the comments. But yes, I'm Sailing Ocelot and I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I'm going to talk about how to write a visual novel today. So my goals for this presentation is to talk about what a visual novel actually is. So hopefully you leave this presentation with a bit more of an idea on that. Hopefully you'll know how to get started if you want to write one. And I just want to really talk about how visual novels can be a great option for storytelling. They have so much potential. And I hope that we can recognize some of that potential in this presentation today. So a little bit about me. I won't go too much on about myself, but I go by the name Sailing Ocelot. I've been working on a science fantasy visual novel since 2019. Usually at the moment I stream writing and productivity streams, but I also play and review visual novels on Twitch as well. So here is our agenda today. We have 6 sections. In my kind of presentation style, I recommend grabbing a paper and pen because we are going through a lot of content today. If you have any questions, the way that I would like to do it on my stream is that I would like you to write a note of your question, but send it in at the Q&A. Okay, so hold on to that question and send it in at the last section of this stream, because you might find your question gets answered a bit later, and it's also a way for me to keep track on questions because I don't have fancy bots and I've only got one screen, so it just makes me a much more happier bunny. Don't tell House Ocelot I said that. Right, so we're going to go for examining structure and features. That's the first section of this presentation. This is the most bulky section, so it will probably last about maybe 20 minutes. It's going to go into a lot of detail, so be prepared for that. And without further ado, let's give this a go. Oh, I've just been told I'm very quiet. I'm going to see if I can do anything about that. Right, I've put the microphone a bit higher, so if I'm still quiet, let me know in the chat. I will try to keep an eye on that feedback. Thank you very much, Gwen. Thank you. So, examining structure and features. The goal for this first section is what structures and features are commonly used in visual novels. We're going to take a look at layout, variables and switches. They are our key words for this section, and we might take a look at a few other extras as well. Yeah, again, with the questions, I would really like the questions to be at the last section, so no need to gather questions, just hold on to them, and I would like them to be asked at the last section, if that's okay. So for layouts, so layout is really important in visual novels. I've made this cute little pretend layouts just so we can talk about the basics in visual novels. We're going to go and look at real visual novel layouts a bit later as well. But here I'm demonstrating the background character layouts, which I like to call also the classic layouts. In truth, no one has bothered to give names to visual novels right now. So I've decided, you know what, let's change this. Let's actually get some names going here. So I'm calling this one the background character layout, or the classic layout. It is the most kind of common, historically common visual novel layouts, especially used in romance visual novels. And if you imagine with visual novels with layouts, you have lots of different translucent colored paper and you're stacking them on top, okay? So you have layers. And on the very top layer, you have something called the dialogue box. The dialogue box obviously features the text. You can see on the top left there is a name, so we know who's speaking. You might find that the dialogue box is stylistically a little bit translucent, but the most important thing is that you can see the text, right? You can see the text very clearly, because otherwise it wouldn't be much of a visual novel. So if we take away that dialogue box, we come to character art. Now, traditionally in visual novels, character art will feature half body character art, which means that the character will appear just below their knees. The rest of the body is chopped off. There are lots of different reasons for that. One of the reasons might be so you can see more detail on the face, which helps us to understand expressions. Another detail is that it's cheaper. It's cheaper to have character art that isn't full character art. So that is also another reason as well. Another reason could be the illusion that the character is quite close to your face as well. So that's important to bear in mind. If we take away the character arts, we then get the background arts, and that's going to be the very last layer on your visual novel, and it's very important to depicting the scene, to let us know whereabouts we are, what time of day it is. Background art can tell us a lot without us having to then write it into the text, so it's very, very important. So going back to the background character layout or classic layouts, There's a couple of extra things you'll find in nearly all visual novels nowadays. You can find buttons, so we call them buttons. So I can see a save button here, a load button here. There's lots of different buttons that are popular in visual novels nowadays. For example, the ability to go back if you need to go back to the text to check if you might have missed something. There's also a fast forward option if you want to skip the text to go straight to a choice. We'll talk about choices in a minute. And there are lots of different buttons that will usually appear around the dialog box, because usually you are constantly clicking on the dialog box to progress the story. So that's why the buttons are usually around the dialog box. You might also find on the top right, usually on the top right, but sometimes on the bottom right, there will be some kind of icon that will allow you to go to the main menu. That might be to access additional features or to inspect items. That is also heavily stylized based on the other kind of symbology and icons that you have already in the game. So it should stand out, but not too much that it draws your eye away from what's going on. So there are other layouts, of course. This is a 2-character layout. Usually in this kind of layout, your main character is on the left, and the character you are speaking to is on the right. To understand very quickly who is speaking, most visual novels have it so that a character might glow a little bit, or they might be more animated when they are speaking. Because although we do have the name on the top left, it's much easier to follow if the character is glowing. So it draws our attention immediately. It trains our eyes. So we have an example here. And then you can see that on the right, the character is now speaking. So now Eric is glowing orangey, peachy color. So that's just one example of how to use a 2-character layout. Now the problem with the classic layout and the 2-character layout is that if you have a dialogue that involves lots of characters at once, you need to constantly switch the character that is talking. That can be quite distracting for your eyes to see, because you are meant to be focusing on the writing. So the solution for that is the multi-character layout. That means you have more than one character on the screen at once, and they will be highlighted when they are talking. The only problem with that is that it can be quite clustered, quite crowded. You can't see the backgrounds so well. So you really need to decide on the best solution for your visual novel. So pop quiz, I'm taking a look on the chat. What kind of layout is this? What kind of layout is this? So this is a screenshot from Bai Chu, Hundreds of Melodies. It's a very beautiful Chinese visual novel that tells a tragic tale. Do we know what layout this visual novel is, or was I talking too quietly? Yes, brilliant. Cotton Spawn has got it. Classic. Yeah, Gala has got it. Classic. Yes. Yes. Okay, this is really good. Yes, this is a classic layout. Don't worry, Gala. I'm typo all the time. I'm sure it's quite annoying when I'm on Twitch and I'm typing quite poorly. So no worries about typos in this chat. We're a typo friendly. We're a typo friendly chat. Okay, so we have another example. What layout is this? What layout is this? Screenshot here has been taken from a summer with a Shiba Inu. Absolutely fantastic visual novel based on characters that are dogs. So cute. So what kind of layout is this? And it's a good reminder that your characters don't have to be human. Gala's got it straight away and has cotton spun. Yes, the two character layout, perfect. So easy, right? Too easy, too easy. Okay, so moving on, of course there are many kinds of visual novel layouts, and some can only be applied to a specific visual novel. I'm going to call these stylized layouts because they're so unique and so stylized, and they're stylized for a reason. They're stylized for an effect, okay? So this layout is from the World of Darkness Preludes. In this layout, the background changes per chapter, or when something really freaky and scary is going to happen. You are constricted, however, to this mobile phone. The responses that you receive from the characters are delayed, as if you are receiving text messages. And in order to progress the story, you need to click the button tap to write. Sometimes your character that you are playing as will type automatically. Sometimes you'll be given options, choices, and you need to make the right choice. Otherwise, there'll be a crack on the screen which indicates your character is probably gonna die. It's a fantastic idea for a horror visual novel. This is another example of a stylized layout, the Werewolf the Apocalypse. So in this layout, you can see on the right, the characters really are blending in with the background. Usually we will make the character art and the background art separate layers so we can move around the characters and change their expressions. In this visual novel, the background art and the character art are together. They are completely blended in. And on the left, because although in this example there's only one sentence, usually the sentences are very long and they are paragraphs long, and then you'll have a few choices below. So this is a really good layout for a visual novel that is very heavy on text, because if you have a dialogue box, you're usually got 2 to 4 lines of space. So this is a good alternative if you want to be a bit more book-like in your visual novel. So choices. I've talked about choices a little bit as we go on, but they are a hugely important part of visual novels, and they bring in the interactive part for our readers. Not all visual novels have choices, but most certainly do. You can have choices that make a mild impact or choices that dramatically change the story. So on the left example, by Chu offers few choices, but they do lead to alternative endings. On the right, choices are very dramatic and can mean your character dies. So you can see the different uses of choices there. You can get different kinds of choices. So some choices work like a switch, which means a player makes a decision, and that will affect the switch. So from the beginning, the switch is off. Okay, it can only be off or on. It can't be in the center. It must only have 2 options. So at the very beginning, it starts with the off position. Okay, when a player makes a decision, the switch is either turned on or remains off. If the switch turns on, you can then make a consequence. If switch is on, then this happens. Or you can also make a consequence if the switch is off. If switch is off, this happens. Sometimes, for example, if you want a character to figure out how to open a locked door, you might not have a consequence if the switch is off. Things might just act as they would normally unless the switch is on, if that makes sense. We do have an example. So for example, would you like an apple? The reader chooses yes or no. That should be no. Whoops. If yes, they receive an apple. If no, they don't receive an apple. Some choices are called variables. Choices that add a value are variables, right? So the best way to understand variables are imagining money. You can have 0 money, you can have billions of money, and you can have all the value in between, okay? So that's a lot of options. And some examples of variables. I got 2 very different examples. On the left is my game. The see here's our cries. What you see there are 4 choices, because I wanted to share that your character doesn't have to choose between 2 choices. You can put as many choices as you want in a visual novel. But these choices affect a relationship value. So the character Annabelle on the left is talking to Grub on the right, and her choices are going to affect her relationship with the character on the right. So they might add to the value, or they might go below the value. They might subtract the value. Okay, and later on, the characters will change their attitudes towards each other depending on the value. If it's negative, positive, very negative, or neutral. So yeah, choices are always fun. Absolutely, Wyvern. So on the right, in Werewolf the Apocalypse, you might just about see it. On the top, there are some icons and stats. So you can have stats like an RPG into your visual novel. The stats are read as rage, willpower, and health, and your choices affect the value of those stats, okay? And the higher stats you have on something might affect the story as you progress. So we know that choices can really dramatically change the nature of your of your visual novel. Switches and variables are the best way to categorize choices that visual novels use, in my opinion. You need to consider, if you're going to put choices in your visual novel, how much agency do you want your readers to have? How impactful should their decisions be? And as a consequence of impactful decisions, you need to consider how many additional scenes are you willing to write, okay? Because you're giving yourself a lot more work the more impactful decisions that your character makes. That's why a lot of visual novels keep a tally of the variables of your choices, but don't actually make an impact to the story until the very end, when you receive a certain ending. That's because it's much easier to write, and it's also more consistent as well. It still provides a challenge as you kind of work out what variables you've triggered due to your past choices. So here's a visual example of choices. So you can have wide games that have lots of impactful decisions, or you can have much longer, narrow games below, which have fewer branches, but they still have impactful decisions, but they're much easier to write. Wide games can be, well, they're difficult to write. They can increase the replayability of the game. You've got to really consider your goals and why you're writing a visual novel to figure out how wide you want your visual novel to be. You don't want it to spiral out of control. So other features, most visual novels have galleries to showcase images you might have come across in previous scenes. Some visual novels have background music, background sound, and sound effects. And also voice acting can be quite popular in visual novels, but don't feel like you have to have voice acting. On the left, on the very left, you get a heavy amount of voice acting. On the in the center, with the mobile phone, there is no voice acting in that game, just very creepy ambient sound. So it's a feature in visual novels, but it's not necessary. It's not necessary. So that was the biggest section. The others are much more cute and happy. No, like biscuits. The other sections are like biscuits, while the first section was like a big cake. So we're going to go for the first biscuit section, examining genre and style. I think I'm losing it. I'm going to take a sip of drink. And yes, Itanshi, you're absolutely right. Voice acting solutions do exist, and we can talk about them a little bit later. Examining genre and style is up next. We're going to take a look at different visual novel genres and styles that I hope might inspire you. And I want to ask, what genres have been explored with visual novels, and what limitations could there be? Let's take a look. The first genre that we absolutely have to mention is the romance genre. The romance genre in visual novels is absolutely huge, and it's definitely the most popular genre in visual novels, and I think that will be the case for a very, very long time. Partially because they're a bit easier to make than some other genres that we're going to talk about today, but also because they're hugely popular, and they bring a great deal of escapism to our reality, I think. And they're also a lot very, very open-minded. They usually have very diverse characters as well. As with romance, though, it's important to be aware that it can be hugely varied. Some visual novels do include erotica. Some have very soft romance genres. So do be aware of that when you are looking into romance visual novels. On the left is an example of a very cute romance story between two female characters called Perfect Gold. Other notable visual novels are listed. Blood Code by Chi Steinsgate, Missed Messages. There are also, later on, I'll be posting an infographic. It's already on the Treasured Trove on Writers CONduit that has all these recommendations on, so don't worry if you don't write down everything. You'll still have this information in a pretty infographic a bit later. Then probably the second most popular genre is the mystery and detective genres. They vary considerably between a cheeky, light-hearted visual novel, for example, the very famous Ace Attorney series. Many people don't realize Ace Attorney is a visual novel, right? You can also get horror death trap stories, murder mysteries, and things like that, which are very, very popular right now. Important features of this genre are usually the use of items. So you might your character might pick up an item, you might be able to access it in the main menu, and you might be able to use that item to support some dialogue. That is a very, very common feature in detective and mystery genre. Other genres can include the sci-fi genre. Sci-fi in visual novels, science fiction visual novels, usually use exploration as a mechanic. So you might be carefully exploring the background art for some clues. Usually there's a lot of things to click on, to interact with in the visual novel setting, to explore about the plot or the wider lore and the world. It's a great way of world building if you can find something in the distance and learn a bit more about that world through that interaction. Science fiction visual novels usually include solving a puzzle or interacting with characters or the world in a certain way to progress. On the left, you can see a screenshot of Therapy. It's a visual novel that I've streamed in the past. It's about mental health, and it's also set in the far future. And there are so many amazing science fiction visual novels. including Opus, Echo of Star Song, Love Thyself, a Horato story, and many more. Of course, you can get horror visual novels. These are becoming more and more popular. They might compete with mystery and detective genre as by quantity at the moment, because they're becoming very popular. They always tend to use as much as they can with the art and music to create a specific haunting style. So art is very important. Sound effects is very important. They might have screen shaking effects as well, flashing images or tints that are used to change the color of the scene for eerie effects. So on the left we have a World of Darkness preludes as an example. Human Neko, When They Cry, is a hugely famous horror visual novel. Then we also have fantasy visual novels. Fantasy genre is hugely varied in visual novels, and they tend to be made by indie studios all around the world, which might contribute to their diversity. They are also very diverse in the character art style. So many fantasy visual novels move away from the anime style and might have more realistic style or more Western cartoon styles and things like that. So I used All Is Fair in Dust and Air on the left to kind of show you what a character might look like. So not necessarily a typical anime style. There are many notable fantasy visual novels. Fate Stay Night is one. Coffee Talk, which is a hugely popular indie game, but also a visual novel, which is very it has a very interesting style. It's very interesting to take a look at. Background art is very important in fantasy visual novels to indicate locations, especially because we don't want to waste time describing these new lands. We want to immediately tell them so we can get into the interesting dialogue, right? Sometimes the style of background art can indicate additional subgenre. For example, modern fantasy and science fantasy use photo manipulation on existing photos to create special effects. So for writing styles, I've included a screenshot on my game for this one. I want to show you that you can include thoughts of a character. You can also use third person. A lot of visual novel fans might think there's only one way to write a visual novel, but from the very beginning there has always been a diverse kind of writing style. So you can see here the writing style I've used, so I'll read that dialogue out for you. It was a whisper, but it felt as if the voice had a great power. Duncan realized he wasn't using his eyes to see anymore. He couldn't concentrate on anything but the... And then we're going to change it to another game. This game is called In Death Becomes You. The character says, "But all I did was ask a simple question about a silly rumor. Why has it become so complicated?" So you got more of a first person kind of style there. All these styles are okay. You just need to consider the kind of style that you're comfortable in writing with. So there are no set rules. You can include the main character's thoughts, but you don't have to. You can focus your writing in first person, or you can focus your writing in third person. You might want a dialogue only visual novel, and that's okay. Some visual novels switch characters' perspective from chapter to chapter, like Perfect Gold. But usually visual novels do focus just on one main character's perspective. That's more common. It's very unlikely that visual novel will switch perspective during a single scene, just like a novel. Yeah, you don't want to switch perspective in one paragraph. Visual novels don't like switching perspectives in one scene because it's too complicated that way. So you really need to make sure that you've angled your writing on the main character for that chapter or that scene, so we can at least follow what's going on And we also want to know more about their personality, and it's a great way of showcasing their personality by their perspective. Right, so we're going to go through gameplay. In gameplay, I'm actually going to show you some gameplay of visual novels. After gameplay, we're going to take a small break. If you want a longer break, you can have a break now and skip some of the gameplay. It's completely up to you. I will be lurking on the chat during the gameplay because I want to say hi. I want to say hi and interact with you. But yes, let's take a look at gameplay. I've chosen 2 visual novels to take a look at. This will last about 8 minutes in total. Then we're going to have a break. I suggest you take a note on how the main menu differs because they differ considerably. Take a look at the opening scenes. Think about what layout are these visual novels, what genre, and what is most notable to you. We're going to begin with blood codes. So for blood code, I suggest you take a extra note on the use of voice acting, the changing character expressions, and the use of the character background or classic layout.
你好，雷雅·艾菲利斯，光明系新生，欢迎就读新晋高等魔法学院。你的资料已经核对完毕，这是你的学员卡，在校内的一切活动都要用到它哦。现在你可以去教务室领取书籍资料。或者去学生会领取你的新校服，记得下午2点去礼堂参加新生入学典礼哦。你好，欢迎来到新进学生会，这是你的校服，请登记。不客气。对了，新生都需要去我们会长那儿报到，会长办公室在3楼，右转第3间就是。再见。
请进。你好，欢迎就读新进，我是洛库辛摩尔。你把这份资料卡拿走，填好了交给你们系的学生会负责人就好。还有事？赶快去领取书籍吧。
So what I found interesting about Blood Code is that they chose not to translate the voice acting in that. So what you heard was some Chinese, because it's a Chinese visual novel, and I thought that was something important to note among everything else that you saw. Voice actors are very expensive, so that could be why. It could also be used to emphasize, hey, this is a Chinese visual novel as well. Some people prefer things to be in the original language, so that's also something to bear in mind. We're going to now take a look at another visual novel. Oh, Cotton Spun also says, oh, interesting that there's a date in the display. Was there a tiny time beneath? Great work noticing that. Yes, that is, use of dates and calendars are quite common in visual novels to help us understand immediately the progression of the day. And yes, so you spotted that very well. Let's take a look now at another visual novel. We're going to take a look at this Rocket of Whispers prologue. This game is free to play. You can be downloading this visual novel now. It is available on Steam. I chose this because it's very accessible. So if you're curious, you can find out more. I also chose this for the genre, the interesting way this visual novel begins, and I would like you to note the lack of names used in the dialogue in the beginning. Think about what effects they are trying to achieve, and take also a note on the puzzle solving and exploration aspects of the game. So that was Rocket of Whispers, a quick glance at the prologue there. I thought it was an excellent example of the potential of a visual novel, so I hope that was really, really helpful for you. We're now going to take a break. It's going to be a small break because I rambled on so much at the beginning, and we still have a few things to continue rambling on about. Let's be back in about 2 minutes, if that's okay. After the break, we're going to be looking at resources for creating visual novels, the development process, and finally, I'm going to try and answer some of your wonderful questions. So, see you in about 2 minutes. Okay, I do apologize that it's a short break, but I don't want to take up too much time and be very late with this presentation, so we're going to keep going, but thank you also for sticking around and bearing with me. We're now going to go into resources. Now, everything I talk about for the latter part of this presentation, please don't panic if you miss anything, or if I'm talking too fast because I've made a mistake of rambling too much earlier. I've made an infographic on the Writers CONduit, so which can be a handy reference for everything that we've discussed today. And it especially includes information on resources and the development process. So sit back, relax, and let's go and move on to the next section. Or the next biscuit. Resources. So we're going to look at a brief overview of some of the most popular visual novel resources. Bear in mind, game development resources and writing resources are also, also there for you to take a look at. For example, if you search for music for visual novels, you might not find much, but music for game developers you might find quite a lot of. So bear in mind you are borrowing also. Right, so for resources I've done 4 categories. We have the software and development. On the left there, I know it's a bit small, but you can go to the Writers CONduit treasure trove if you want to be able to see this information more clearly. On the left is storyboards. I highly recommend you use storyboards to support your development process. We'll talk about that a bit later. You can use online and offline whiteboards. I highly recommend Miro.com, because you can use 3 whiteboards for free, and they're huge. right? They're huge. They have so much capabilities. It's so intuitive. I use the free version of Miro, and I haven't used up all of one board yet, and I use that to use flowcharts to really understand where my game's heading and to understand the consequences of all my choices. And I also make a tally, which is very important, on the maximum possible variable a player can achieve per chapter and the minimum possible variable a player can achieve, so I can keep up to date with that and make consequences that are actually achievable for players to have. There's no point in making a consequence later on in your visual novel that it's impossible. It's impossible. So all that writing would have been for nothing. So Miro.com is a really good whiteboard. World Anvil also have whiteboards as well, but with World Anvil you do need a hefty subscription fee for the use of whiteboards, and it is not intuitive like Miro.com. However, it is a fantastic way of connecting your world building with your flowcharts. So if you want everything linked together, do take a look at World Anvil as well. Flowchart specialist software includes Twine, which is hugely popular and also free to use, and Graph VLZ, which I believe is also a free to use flowchart specialist software. I'm just dismantling my table, never mind. Moving on to visual novel making software. RenPy is the go-to. RenPy is the most famous visual novel making software that you can get. It is free to use as well, but it does require use of coding, which can set back some game developers. So be aware of that, but RenPy is very, very popular. You can also use Tyranno Builder and Visual Novel Maker, which don't require any use of coding. It's a drag and drop kind of system. However, it will be more limited, and the communities around those softwares are smaller as well. So if something goes wrong, you have a bit less support there. That's something important to note. You don't have to use a specialist visual novel making software, of course. You can make other game making software, including Unity, which is the big one, and a lot of hybrid visual novels use Unity. You can also use Blender and any other game making software as well. So do consider that as well. Let's go on to the left, so sound. I'm going to blitz through this. Zap Sound and Free Sound offer free to use for commercial use sound effects that are brilliant as long as you give credits. You can also purchase a very cheap license for all of the sounds at once, which is very affordable in my opinion. You can also consider use of package deals. Humble Bundle has a lot of package deals that are very popular for game developers that often include sound effects and game music. I'm the one on Writers CONduit. I've also got that license for that song. It was part of a package deal on Humble Bundle and it was very affordable, and it's fantastic. I can use them for my games as well. And there are also lots of opportunities to find different sounds on the internet. Just make sure you check their licenses, because they might be not licensed for use of games, they might only be licensed for use in film, etc, etc. With art, you can use, there's so much free to use art. I said in the chat, photo manipulation of copyright free art is very popular right now in visual novels because it's so affordable. Okay, so with art, free to use art, photo manipulation of copyright free images is very popular. You can get Pixels, Pixabay, Morphfile and Openverse. Some indie development websites, including itch.io, which I mentioned before in the chat, they have a lot of free resources as well. Check free resources before purchasing art. It's very, very important, because you might purchase lower quality art and find higher quality art that's available for free. It can happen. There is a lot of amazing high quality art that is made out there to support the visual novel community. So you can also consider, when you're commissioning art, doll makers. Mannequin is one on Steam that is very, very cheap. They can be purchased, some doll makers can be purchased and licensed for use in visual novels. There are also websites, right, where you can commission arts such as Instagram, ArtStation, DeviantArt, Fiverr, Discord channels, Reddit, and personal recommendations can also be important. I recommend, if you are new to commissioning art, stick to websites that are specialized in dealing with artists. Fiverr is a good one. ArtStation again is maybe can help you out too. Make sure these websites are there to support you if anything goes wrong. So that's what I recommend. If you are all new to the whole art commissioning thing. Writing, you're going to use similar writing softwares that other writers use. With writing, you're going to be using I'm a little bit stuck because my phone is not working. There we go. So with writing, you're going to use similar writing programs that other writers use. So do bear that in mind too. Grab what you can from the writers community. But something that you do need to be aware of is that you need constant feedback on your visual novel. That is so important. Again, itch.io is a great place to start. I'm also going to recommend, if you are interested in writing a visual novel, perhaps we can make a Discord group together. I've started one and I'll send a link into the group, into the chat a bit later, in case you're interested in giving that a go, so we can talk about that together and support each other. Because right now, with the game development community, is very separated from visual novels, because the game developers are it's all about the codes, and it's there's a lot of mechanics going on, and it's not necessarily what visual novels are about sometimes. And so it is helpful for a specialized community there, and there isn't really much going right now for visual novels. World building, of course, World Anvil and Campfire are options on that. I'm just going to keep going forward and to the development process, because that's the most important bit of the presentation, I think. And I think I spent too much time on the resources bit. Right, so I'm just going to take a sip of a drink and a deep breath. Hold on a minute. Okay, let's do this. Right. So this last section I think is the most important. I'm going to tell you the development process of making a visual novel. Again, this is also included in the infographic. So step 1 of the development process, you need to think of a story idea for your visual novel. Okay, you need to consider the genre, the length, because how much you want to commit to this visual novel, the setting and the characters. Once you've got that down, think about how to reveal the story. What is your dialogue, character, action balance? Your writing style, use of items, and any exploration elements. These decisions will affect what visual novel software you decide to use. Then you need to consider how to show the story. What is the layout you're going to use? You can go back to where we talked about different layouts. What is the music, sound effects that we're going to use? The visual effects, you can have animated rain appearing on the screen. What kind of art style do you want? It's very important to think about that early on. And then how to interact with the story. So you need to think about the user interface design, such as the use of dialogue boxes, etc. You need to think about your choices, the switches and variables you're going to use and how impactful they should be, and any unique game mechanics. It's important to think about that early on as well. Step 2, you plan your story as much detail as possible. Unlike other forms of writing, if you have no idea what you're doing in your visual novel, it's much harder to keep an eye on things and to keep the game consistent. So you really do need to plan your story ahead. You need to develop those characters, and you need to know what they look like as well. You need to know how they react, what kind of expressions they might make. You need to world build. You need to be very aware of your setting so you can constantly reference it in the visual novel. And it's very important to have a timeline as well, so you don't have any conflicting events. Be sure to start experimenting on this step on different visual novel software or game software, so you know roughly which one you're going to be using when you're ready to move on. Step 3 will mean that you're starting to create notes. I recommend you write your visual novel badly. Okay, write the story really badly. Just make sure that you've got everything roughly you want to include. This will help you think as well. Oh, I forgot about this, I better add that in. And just by going through, write your badly written notes, you will know what's happening in the story. Okay, there won't be any surprises for you. Then you want to storyboard or use flowcharts. Okay, so you're going to make diagrams of what happens. So you might, for example, draw a square and saying roughly what's happening in the scene, then do an arrow to maybe 2 different boxes if there's a choice, for example. You might want to add little notes when a variable is added or subtracted. Then once you've done that, you're going to do the script writing. Now I recommend you write your visual novel like a script, okay, like as much like a screenplay as you can, but missing out any other thing that you're definitely not going to be including into your visual novel. So make it work, make the script style work for you. Basically, it's important that you include information on who's talking, etc., etc. And if you write it without code, the script is much easier for outsiders to read, to check, and to give you feedback on. So I highly recommend that you do that. So write your scripts and use your storyboarding and your flowcharts to support your script writing. Your script writing will be exactly how you want it to appear on the game. Later on, then, once you're happy and you've fixed all the typos and things like that, you're going to input that script into your game. It might mean that you do some coding, it might be that you simply copy and paste the script into the game, depending on what kind of software you decided to use. For step 4, it's time to gather your resources. Itanshi earlier says be careful of content mills on Fiverr. Absolutely. I think it's something that the more you do, the more experience you get. It's going to be much easier to do commissions, but feel free to, if anyone has any more questions about commissioning, feel free to plug that in the Q&A. You need to bear in mind your budgets and make sure you are aware of the user interface, how the dialogue boxes look, how the icons look, as well as all of the other character art and music that you might want. Bear in mind additional features that you might want are going to be more complex to code. You might want someone to help you out with that. That's also going to have to be part of your budget as well. Then we have the final step of the development process. You have the alpha stage, where you will have incomplete assets, but you still have opportunity to modify key elements. Okay, so you will get some feedback hopefully on each stage, and if there is a critical thing of, hey, this part of the game is not fun for me, you can still modify that and change it. It's not too late. It's not the end of the world. So the alpha stage is really important. If in the alpha stage your game isn't completed, finishing the project should still be clearly in sight. Because of this, there's also a pre-alpha stage where you should still receive constant feedback on your work. You can then get the beta stage. This stage means the game is nearly complete. There should be minor bugs, which is also very important, why you get testers regularly. Then you'll release a demo, most likely. This is a great way of marketing your visual novel, and also you can receive very helpful feedback on how readers may react to the visual novel, in case you need to make any kind of changes to your trailers and things like that. Then later on, hopefully you'll be releasing this visual novel and it's available to all the readers. Woohoo! Later on there might be the updates, so you might be fixing any additional bugs, new chapters may be added, and possibly you might get a sequel. So that is the development process of visual novel. I hope that was very helpful to you. If you would like to put me on the spot, this is your chance to ask some questions about visual novels. I'll do my best to answer them, and if not, I hope to signpost you towards further research. And thank you so much for being part of this presentation. I'm also going to be sending in some links into the chat right now that I hope will be of interest for you. So yeah, question time. If you have any questions, go for it. Whoops. I should still be presenting that, and then I should alt tab, because that is what cool people do. There we go. Right. Right, Gala has a question. Would the game Until Dawn qualify as a more immersive visual novel because of the way it's presented? Unfortunately, Gala, I am seriously uncool and I don't know this game. I'm very sorry about that, but Gala, if you've got my Discord probably, if you want to message me, I can take a look at some gameplay and give you my opinion on that later. Thank you very much, Dragoness, for your comments. That's really, really sweet. I hope it wasn't too much information as well. So the first link I'm going to send you is my visual novel Discord. If you're interested in the visual novel that I've been working on, feel free to take a look at that. Next website I'm going to plug in is my own website. I'm not too great at making websites, but if you want to know again more about my visual novel, you're more than welcome to. If you're interested in making a visual novel and you want to gather together and build a community, very inspired by Coffee Quill's earlier really awesome presentation, this community is completely empty. It's only got me in it. But if you want to discuss visual novels, then perhaps we can gather together and support each other's own developments in our Discord. So if you're interested in that, feel free to go into that community. It's just a completely new idea. There is nothing like standardized in it, so if you really want to get involved, it could be a good time. The next link I'm sending is of course the Writers CONduit Twitch. Make sure you follow them if you haven't already. And then the last link is Writers CONduit website. Don't forget, I have a very cool infographic in the treasure trove on Writers CONduit. It's free, it's for you, it's a present, a gift. It's a gift for Writers CONduit for allowing me to haphazardly do a presentation, and it's also a gift for you. I really hope it's very helpful and it covers a lot of what we've talked about today. Oh, I'm gonna take a big stretch. Oh gosh, what a time, what a time. So we're going to be raiding soon, unless you have some more questions. Additionally, inspired by Coffee Quill's earlier stream, if you do have any feedback, minus Sailing Ocelot, how dare your internet be rubbish. If you have any other feedback you'd like to give to me on this, I really want to improve this kind of thing. I really hope that I can get involved in Writers CONduit next year. So I'm always looking for feedback on how to improve and things like that. Feel free to reach out to me. This has been Sailing Ocelot streaming how to write a visual novel. Thank you so much, and I'll see you there.